Oh, yeah. You know what time it is. It is time for the Stacks on Stacks, the weekly windup. And Robbie, we are like, I don't know, my math is not very good at this point, but I'm going to say it's like T minus like 28 hours until NFL draft time. Like
Pretty much.
we're like 28 hours and counting at this point before we rock and roll live with some NFL draft. And some of y'all are going, well, what, the NFL draft, yeah, it's cool, yada, yada, yada. Then you've been living on a rock and you have not been paying attention to a lot of the stuff that we've got going on out there because we have a amazing partnership going on with the folks over at Pickups and the folks over at Elias Game Plan, in which we're bringing y'all a contest free to enter props type of deal where you can jump on in and you can take advantage of some of these amazing props that are going on there. Like I said, free to play. Winner, you get the prize there, and the link's in the description. You need to make sure that you're getting in there, getting it done. But all of that to lead up to say that we got the wind up here, and we're going to be going through a lot of that stuff. I am Derek from the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, joined as always by my co-host Rumbles Robbie. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I'm on the road running some errands. So, we had to make sure we pulled over really quick and we took care of the wind up. I'm excited for the NFL draft. A whole lot of hype, a whole lot of coverage, a whole lot of everything going down. Y'all got it. Y'all got to get on the Stacks app, stacksapp.io, Google it, hit that open it app button, hit that download app button, and go ahead and make sure you guys download the app. You know what it is. Dilly dilly. Let's go.
Yeah, because if you don't, you're missing out. Also, make sure that you're following the Join Stacks app on the socials. Instagram and the Twitters and the TikToks there. Make sure that you're getting all that. And quite frankly, if you were following some of that, I'm sure that you've seen us talking some of these props. But Robbie and I are gonna go through a lot of these types of things. Like we said before, you can if you're looking to it on YouTube, you can find the description. In the description, you can find the link to play this thing and join us here as well, and see if you got what it
Yeah.
takes to beat some of the folks that do this all day every day and talk about it all day every day. Hop in here, have some fun with us. So, Robbie, let's
Yeah.
just go ahead and get right into this competition. Right, like we said, this was one of those that we are partnered up with Pickup here and Elias Game Plan for the challenge on this one. So all of the insights, all of these stats, all of that's going to be brought to you by Elias, by the folks over at Elias Game Plan here. So we're going to start it off with the question being, who will be the number one overall pick, right? 15 of the last 20 number one overall picks have been quarterbacks. This year, they may very well be an outlier in that.
Oh, yeah.
The most recent time that we've seen a non-quarterback drafted at that first overall position was in 2017 when we saw the Browns draft Myles Garrett with that first pick. There's a lot of edge rushers here. There's a lot of tackles here. Both are premium positions in the NFL. So, Robbie, who do you think is going with the first overall pick?
So for me, first overall pick, I put out my mock yesterday. Trying to remember off the top of my head. I believe I went Aiden Hutchinson at one. Uh, I believe I had Trayvon Walker falling a little bit there. I know that right now, if you look on DraftKings Sportsbook, he is favored. If you look on any sportsbook, Trayvon Walker is favored to go first. That would be the most Balkian move. But I don't think that Balky's gonna make that mistake. I think he's gonna go Aiden Hutchinson. If not Hutchinson, I could see maybe even Thibodeau there at number one. But they got to get a premier edge rusher. They got to get a guy that can be that Bosa, that can be that JJ Watt, that can be that just that big disrupting force coming off the edge.
Right. And I can see that. And for what you're saying, right? Aiden Hutchinson is by far the safer of the two of the options there when it comes to it, right? He has the highest floor between those guys. But Trayvon Walker really is kind of the X factor here on this one because he certainly has the higher ceiling amongst these other guys out there, right? He's got a freak athletic profile coming into this one. kind of reminds me, as far as an outlier, as far on the athletic profile, of an Aldon Smith back in the day, who the 49ers drafted early. And oh, by the way, it was Trent Baalke that did that one as well. So I could absolutely see them going that way, right? And so this one here, it really comes down to it, right? Do they go with the safer floor, the safer play guy, the more polished guy, in a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, or do they go with the guy that potentially has the higher ceiling on this one? I think they go higher ceiling with that number 1 overall, and I'm thinking it's Trayvon Walker's who I've got going to the Jags.
And we've seen this multiple times where, it gets, 72 hours, 48 hours before the draft, and then, new analysis, new information, inside sources, things change. We've seen this before. This is why it's so important that, especially on we're running a couple of different competitions on the Stacks app. We have one powered by my company, 32-bit. Shout out to Marcus Graham, NFL Network, president of 32-bit. We're giving away a DJ Moore jersey, and we have a competition going on where we have guys mocking their predictions. They are predicting for accuracy. We have some Trayvon Walkers going at 1. We have some Kayvon Thibodeau's going at 1. We have some Aiden Hutchinson's going at 1. I think I've seen some Evan Neal's kind of come off the board at 1. We've seen so many different things, and I think that while there has not, and we're going to get into it later in the show, when we talk about the QBs and the depth at receiver and all these different things, this is probably for the football purist going to be the most, we're doing 3 days worth of coverage. 3 days worth of coverage. You can catch it on Run Boys. You can catch it on Good Old Boys. I was on NFL Fantasy Podcast today. You guys have 1,000,001 different sources. There's no exhaustion of sources that you can go to. This is going to be the most entertaining draft that you have seen. There are going to be positions that are going to be picked that are going to greatly influence the way that you fantasy football. If you think that Evan Neal possibly going to the Giants doesn't affect that the ability for that receiving core to be a little bit more fruitful, just because there are not skill positions and all the fancy positions going right away, does not mean that this is not must-see TV, and does not mean that you should not be preparing properly for fantasy football. There's a new format this year called All 22, presented by Pro Football Focus, where you're drafting linemen. This is going to be a make-or-break draft for the fantasy football degen. I mean degen in the kindest way possible.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Right. When we say degen, it's a term of endearment.
Endearment, yes, sir.
Welcome to the club is how we say that. So, absolutely right. And this is one of those that this draft too is an interesting one, because it's not necessarily as top loaded and top heavy as we've seen in the past, where outside of a couple of premium guys to go to some of those premium picks, this is a draft that this is going to affect long-term of franchises, because of the fact that you're really building some depth and some foundation in these things. And this is one of those drafts that you're not going to see the big star power quarterback go off the board first overall. You're not going to see, preeminent tight ends go in the first round. You're not going to see, a lot of these other things that we see and we draft them for fantasy, right? There's a chance, and we'll just go ahead and skip all the way down there since we're talking about that. There's a chance that we don't even see a running back drafted in the first round here. And this was a stack that I put on the app earlier today. Whereas, will a running back be drafted in round 1 in the common era? So since 1967, only 2 first rounds of the draft have featured 0 RBs. That was in 2013 and 2014. The sports books out there have the odds-on favorite for a 0 RB to be drafted in this first round. Will there be a running back drafted in round 1 this year?
So to answer that question, and this is off of the Elias game plan sheet, so I believe.
Yes, it is.
Make sure you guys text 31032 the word Stacks in all caps in order to enter, okay? If hitting the description section and hitting the link, maybe a couple of different steps, text the word Stacks, all caps, 31032 to play this prop. Elias is one of the most trusted, and that's where that insight comes from that you drop. sports databases and analytic sources in the industry. Everybody uses them. Everybody. So with that being said and with that being stated, for them to deliver us that insight and deliver us that piece of information, if you do not take that and run to the books to place a bet that there won't be a running back drafted in the first round, if you don't take that information and play it on the Elias Game Plan Challenge, you very well could be doing yourself a disservice. Because here's what it is. It's contrarian. Like you said, there's only been 2 other times that has happened. So if it happens for you, if you just so may happen to be the person to hit, if Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker aren't off the board in the first round, that's easy points. That's pickup points. That's Elias Game Plan points. That's money towards you in the sports book, whatever book you're playing. You're doing a service, Jared, by bringing up that insight.
Absolutely.
I don't think that there's one that gets taken.
No, I don't. I don't either, right? I've heard a lot of things out there about Kenneth Walker going in the first round. I've heard a lot of things out there about Breece Hall going out there in the first round. And everybody seemingly keeps trying to put Breece Hall to the Buffalo Bills. And quite frankly, I don't understand that one at all. Buffalo has a lot more needs that they have. Running back is a potential need there. However, we saw Devin Singletary come on strong towards the end of last year. Zach Moss is still on the roster. They added Duke Johnson during the offseason here as well. Like, they've got some veterans on that presence there. And if you're going to be drafting a running back in the first round, you're looking for an immediate impact. I don't know that you're going to see a guy come in and supplant all of those running backs to be a true 3-down back. Which is why you take a first round running back.
We've seen late round backs be great.
Yeah. We've also seen day two and even day 3 backs be great. Like,
exactly.
It's not the premium position it once was in the NFL.
That's not to say that this won't happen in future drafts when there's just that pure dog pedigree. But for 2022, I think that the safe pick, and it might be safer than what people think. You mocked, all the analysts out there mock. How many mocks we've seen where there's not a running back coming off the board in round 1?
The majority of them. Actually, I take it back. You've got a bunch of people that, for fantasy purposes, and that's where I tend to see it more so, as the guys that are very, very heavy in fantasy. They are the ones that tend to be mocking Breece Hall to Buffalo. Same thing too. I've seen a lot of other people trying to put, like, Kenneth Walker to a team like the latest one I heard was Kansas City. Again, I don't know why that makes any sense. They just brought in Ronald Jones during the offseason.
I think Kansas City goes Christian Watson. I think they try and get their Hunter Renfrow, their Cole Beasley, their
6'5" Cole Beasley, huh? Like, that's a completely different type of wide receiver. Yeah,
he does really well at coming back to the ball. He does really well at intermediate routes. The kid is practically fucking twinkle toes when he's on the sideline.
Right.
I like him for that usage. I think that has been a wrinkle that has been missing out of Kansas City's game. That's where I see Kansas City going. If you're going to try and convince me that Kansas City goes running back, I'm going to tell you that you got into my weed stash.
Yeah, I don't see them going that way, right? You brought Ronald Jones in. Kenneth Walker and Ronald Jones, similar skill set there, right? The CEH is still going to be the 3rd-down back. He is going to be the guy that's protecting Patrick Mahomes in obvious passing situation, things like that. It's not going to be a Kenneth Walker who needs a lot of help in pass protection. It's not going to be a Ronald Jones who has had a lot of issues with that throughout his NFL career on that one as well. So it's not going to happen. What I really see happening is I see Kansas City taking a shot on a guy like a George Pickens potentially there on that one, a guy that can play a true X. Yep. Outside receiver, has some speed to it, can be a contested catch guy, has that true X archetype body for the NFL there. And now you can try and unlock the Kansas City offense even a little bit differently than just the speedster with a big body guy that can play the X.
And I'm gonna keep it real with you. I said it in not to bring this player up. I mean, we're not talking about this player, but it's the same thing that I said in his breakdown that I will mention a lot with a lot of different players during the 3 days of draft day. And that is that you are going to see a lot of guys that are going to be. I feel like this year, especially from a fantasy football standpoint, like you brought up earlier with the mocks and stuff, you are looking for guys that you're looking for a lot more skill set dependent and a lot of landing spot dependent players. Christian Watson, landing spot dependent.
Right.
Drake London, because of his ability to come back to the ball, he is landing spot dependent. If he's got a quarterback that is going to overthrow him often, or if he has a guy that underthrows because of his ability to cut back, because of his speed, he's not the fastest. He's running about like that unofficial 4.5 ish. That ability to stop on a dime and then cut back, that's what makes him so deadly. And that's why I say that a guy that for a guy like London going to the Commanders makes sense. Or going to the Jets, even at one of those higher picks, makes sense. Hell, Tua underthrows every freaking receiver. London's not going to fall to that point, but makes sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're going to get a lot more scheme dependent draftees than you've ever had before.
Right. Well, you also don't necessarily have those elite top talent. You don't have the Jamar Chase type of player in this draft. You don't, right? Necessarily taking anything away from these first round wide receivers that we're going to see, or some of these other skill position players that we're going to see. It's just this draft doesn't have some of that top end talent on there. They've still got very talented players. So, but you bring up Drake London, and that's an interesting one here as well, because guess what? That one's also in on the Elias game plan challenge. Here was the one that you dropped a stack on in app about yesterday. And so will USC star Drake London get drafted inside the top 10? Right. So in the common draft era, again, since 1967, 8 USC wide receivers have been taken in round 1. Among them, 3 went in the top 10. Curtis Conway in 1993 was number 7 to Chicago. Keyshawn Johnson in 1996 was number 1 overall to the Jets. Mike Williams in 2005 went number 10 to Detroit. Now, the books have this one being a very close call, and it looks like the props are actually plus money at this point if you're taking London to be drafted inside the top 10. So that's the question. Where are you taking Drake London? Is he a top 10 receiver or no?
It's such a close call, but I really, really wholeheartedly believe that I think that if he does not go to the Jets, then that is a lock for him to go to Washington at 11. Washington only has the decision between at 11, aside obviously from trading. I mean, that's always a scenario in the back of everyone's mind. Washington keeping the pick at 11, it's either Drake London or Kyle Hamilton. One of those two will fall. You're not going to be able to have your cake and eat it too. If you're one of these other teams in the top 10. So if London or Hamilton makes it out, that's where that's where one of those two go at 11. I believe that it will be London just because you have Wilson, you have Olave, you have your guy Jameson Williams, all guys that I believe could, and I think that it's the Jets that make the decision at receiver. All guys who I believe would be good, better off fits for the Jets. Obviously, if the Jets don't trade back. Just my personal belief. That's what I'm feeling. I think it's number 11. I think that's your safest bet. And if it's not 11, then it's obviously the top 10. He's going in the top 10. If it's not 11, it's top 10.
I could see that. I can also craft a scenario for you in which he falls beyond 11 as well, right? So
Okay.
and the Jets are, it's all going to be come down to a combo pick and who's available there at number 10 for them, right? So I honestly believe that they're going to take Sauce Gardner number 4 overall with it,
That's
right?
what I want.
I
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, is that you're going to see Sauce Gardner go there, right? They and really kind of shore up some of that that secondary there. And then at number 10, there's a very real chance that you'll have one of the top 4 edge rushers in this draft class, which those are kind of a tier apart from the next group. There's a significant tier drop off once you get beyond those first 4 edge rushers, and there's a very good chance that you could have a Jermaine Johnson still sitting there at number 10. Now,
Yeah.
if you're the Jets, and you're looking at the choice between London, you're looking at the choice between Johnson, I think that you go with Jermaine Johnson on that one, simply from the standpoint of how does Robert Saleh do his defense? It's putting pressure onto the quarterback using the front 4 of that, plus down the road, right there, they've got some contracts along that defensive line that are going to need to get sorted out rather quickly over the next couple of years. Having a guy on a rookie deal that can be a premier edge rusher in the league, which Jermaine Johnson has all the skill set and tools to do, I think that they could very well go Jermaine Johnson there, and Jets go defense on their first 2 picks here, in which case, I could still see Kyle Hamilton sitting there at 11. I could see Drake London sitting there at 11. And I think your Commanders actually go with Kyle Hamilton over Drake London in that point. Again, Ron Rivera, defensive-minded head coach, and allows him to get a defensive weapon to be put in there. The Commanders, one of the things that commonly is
is defense. It's defense.
Right.
That their thing is we'll flip flop every other year. We'll go offense. We'll go defense. We'll go offense. We'll go. That's their first round usual thing.
Right.
So this would be the year that I could see them. I could see defense. I'm not complaining if it's Kyle Hamilton because it's a need. This is a deep receiver class.
Right. Yeah, no, it certainly is, right? And this is one of those that, again, that's part of the reason that I don't think the Jets are going to be that, that overly concerned to have to pick up their guy at 10 there. And if they've got the edge rusher, they'll go that route because the fact of what you can get tier breaks between those two, the wide receiver class is deeper than the edge class is in this draft class.
Yep.
So I absolutely think that that's the way that they play that one out, and it'll be very interesting to see how it ultimately comes to play.
And I could see Hamilton being very fruitful. And then just to put an IDP twist on it, I could see him being very fruitful if you're coming up in your IDP rookie draft, post landing spot. If he does end up with Washington, you couple that with Young and like Davis, like the rest of those guys on that defense that are going out there get the job done. This is going to be a defense that's going to get you a lot of turnovers. They could be very, very fruitful for you, even in redraft formats, week to week, total team defense types of scenarios. I could see this if Hamilton is selected, I could see it improving the defense as a whole and making these guys fantasy relevant from an IDP standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at it too, right? The Commanders have a very good front 4 as far as a rush and a run and a pass rush attack there. Where they need help is in that secondary. So Kyle Hamilton certainly helps shore up some of that along the backside there. Plus the fact that he is one of those that he can come down and he can cover a tight end and cover a tight end in a man-to-man coverage, has the speed to do so, has the body and the frame to be able to do that, and isn't near the mismatch that we've seen traditionally happen, that tight ends are able to run around all over the place there. And, the tight ends tend to do well in that NFC East conference there as well. So I think that could be something to be said there. Plus the fact that I really do think that, that the Washington Commanders want to see what Curtis Samuel can truly do when he's healthy, paired next to Terry McLaurin there. So that could also be part of that too, is the fact that you've got your 1-2 and you can look into the third round or the second round, even third round, even pick up that extra piece to be a third wide receiver for you. So I can see it. I like it. All right, let's hit up our last prop of the day. And this one coming in from the folks over at Pickup, right? Like I just saw Darnell drop a stack on this one while we were on air here. So we're going to go ahead and hit this one up and just talk about it here. And he was asking, who is the first quarterback going to be drafted? Again, this is one of the props on the Elias Game Plan Challenge, and Elias providing the insight of the last time the first quarterback drafted was from a non-FBF school was 1995 when Alcorn State's Steve McNair was the number 3 overall by the Houston Oilers. Now, Malik, things have certainly changed as far as those divisions and all of that in the last little bit there. But Malik Willis would fit that bill as far as being that non-FBS school there. Kenny Pickett could also become the first quarterback from the University of Pittsburgh, drafted in the first round since Dan Marino all the way back in 1983. He also would be the first Pitt Panther of any position drafted in the first round since Aaron Donald did it in 2014. So some interesting things at play there. But the question is, who's going to be the first quarterback drafted round 1? Who you got?
So I do have Malik Willis. To a point that you say multiple times, this isn't like the greatest, sexiest, quarterback class. I do believe that it could be Malik Willis to Carolina. If not Carolina, I could see Detroit doing something crazy at 2. We have to remember that this is an NFL draft. This is a televised event, so that it doesn't get boring or dull. Teams are going to do things to make it exciting. There's going to be viral moments. There's going to be those Twitter moments, those Instagram moments. Those roast me moments. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this team just took a kicker. There's gonna be crazy shit, right? Everything that sounds super logical to us as analysts may not always be the way that it plays out come draft day. We've seen this millions of times. We've seen the Raiders take kickers. We've seen the Bucks take kickers. So on and so forth. We've seen quarterbacks swap whole conferences because they don't want to play against their brother Eli. There's gonna be spectacle. There's gonna be parity. It's going to happen. Someone is going to mess this up for everyone that has analyzed this. With that being said, and with that being stated, that's not to say that Malik Willis, just because he is selected early, just because we feel that this is a weak quarterback classes, these are our takes, these are our opinions. As much as we may feel conviction in being correct, that's not to say that he can't be something. That's not to say that he can't come out and light it up. So just because we have, and I am saying this mainly because we are hours away from the draft, in case any of these kids, may see it or whatever, I doubt it, but whatever the case, right? It's not to say they can't be great. Just because we feel this way, just because we feel that for the most part, at best, there's a second round talent out of all of them. If your team takes a quarterback early, don't feel like it's in the world. You don't know what's going to happen until they hit the turf. You don't know what's going to happen until you draft them for your fantasy team or you pick them up off the waivers. You don't know.
Right. And there's a lot to be said at that, right? You think about, you think about the amount of times that folks have got it wrong on this one, right? There's a lot of quarterbacks in the league right now that the analysts had it wrong on where they had it graded, right? Russell Wilson.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, Russell Wilson was a third round guy. Tom Brady, a 6th round guy. Dak Prescott slid into the 4th round. You've got a lot of these guys that
Romo was undrafted.
Yeah. The Romo was also
I'm not giving Romo praise, but I mean he was manageable for someone that was not drafted.
Well, I mean, realistically, Tony Romo was still on any given year was a top 20 quarterback.
Yeah.
That's not a stretch to say. There's a lot to be said about a guy that didn't get drafted who was one of the best, 20 best guys at that position any given year, right? You look at you look at a lot of these guys, right? It's one of those that the talent and what they've put on film and the workouts is what's gotten them their grading on this thing.
Warren Moon.
You don't know what that's going to look like as far as what the the development behind the scenes is going to come through, right? Like what the coaching is going to look like, how these kids are going to adapt to that coaching style, how they're going to take the book and the playbook and digest it. You don't know sometimes you just don't know the work
You
ethic
can't
on these
predict
guys,
heart. You
and
can't predict heart.
right. You don't know what somebody, when you put one of those chips on somebody's shoulder, what it's going to do and where it's going to take them and allow them to exceed to, right? Like full heartedly agree with you on that one. To simply say that, yes, most of these quarterbacks are going to, if they're, in my opinion, if they're drafted in the first round, you're probably reaching on a lot of these guys this year, right?
Yeah, it's
These guys are developmental quarterbacks. And I say that from the standpoint that they certainly can get better. But right now coming into it, they're not near the polished prospects that we've seen in last year's draft class, the year before that's draft class, or what we'll even see in next year's draft class from the
There's not a Kyler
position.
Murray. There's not a Joe Burrow.
Right.
Like, there's a it's not it's not, there's not a whole lot of sexy to it at the quarterback position. But again, if your team does reach, we've seen teams reach, and that reach has paid off for them.
Right.
Does it happen all the time? No. But like, I guess the best way to put a bow on it is like draft night is full of a lot of emotions, especially the first round. Draft week, period. These next 3 days, for you as a fan, you haven't had football action in months. All that shit's pent up and saved up. You're going to be letting it out. Some of you guys may have not watched a lot of these guys' college tapes or whatever the case, Don't just go off the crowd reaction or the boos or whatever. Formulate your own opinion. Don't how do I say, don't overreact until you see the play happen on the field. And then after that, you could be like, I knew that was going to happen, or I didn't expect this to happen. It's a 50-50. It's either they pan out, it's either they boom or they bust. That's it.
Right. And there's been plenty of guys too that were, surefire, can't miss, touted as generational talent type of guys, and they don't make it past their first contract. We've seen that a number of times too.
Yeah.
Interesting fact for everybody out there that's not on any of my my sheets or anything like that. But there are far more players in the NFL Hall of Fame that were drafted outside of the first round than those that are drafted inside the first round. So
I can't confirm that. Go to the Hall of Fame in Canton. Go to the bus room. Your eyes will be opened at the amount of NFL history that you think you know and you don't know.
Right. Yeah, you will. You're at this point, just statistically speaking, you are more likely to end up in the Hall of Fame of the NFL being drafted outside of the first round than being drafted inside. So
there's one first round. There's 5 other freaking whole ass rounds.
7 or 6. Is there 7 rounds total?
6. Yes. Yeah. I think it's like 6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah, it's 7. It's 7. Math on a Wednesday afternoon, man. I tell you what.
Day before draft, I'm ready to just sleep tonight, wake up, and get the job done.
Right. Yeah. At this point, most of the guys that follow this coverage, and do the coverage on this, our brains have been working overtime for the past week, fully getting prepared and really been grinding on this thing for the last month, trying to do this. And it's kind of like, it's almost like the night before Christmas right now.
It really is. It really is. I recommend, if you're working the draft, this is for all the analysts and all the content creators out there that are working the next 3 days. Tonight, get some good rest. Tomorrow, don't eat anything out the ordinary. Eat a nice healthy breakfast. Because once it starts, it starts. It's for real. And once the selections start coming through, all the pre-work that you've done now, that shit goes out the window. All the pre-analysis, because now you're redoing all that analysis for these guys' new home and their new team fits.
Yep.
You could mock again. Doesn't mean that things are going to change from what you did. So don't get too set on your takes out there, content creators. You guys got this. Guys and girls, you got this.
Yep. By the way, the guys, if you haven't done so already, text Stacks STACKS. Wow.
Words are hard.
Words are hard. Math is hard. Today is hard.
31032 to 31032.
We're going to tag team this thing to fruition. I like it. So make sure you're texting Stacks to 31032. Join Robbie and myself and a bunch of others in playing the Elias Game Plan Challenge. There's some great prizes out there for those who win. And for for a lot of times people are apprehensive on some of these things, like, oh my gosh, I got to go in and it's going to take all this time and all of that. No, I had a couple of people do it last night, and it is a 2-minute process from start to finish, if even that. You hop in, you make your selections, you hit submit, you're done, and we'll see you. We'll see you at the finish line on what this thing looks like, and hopefully we'll be sending you some prizes for winning and taking down the whole dart thing.
And we also have a sponsor, Stack by 32-bit. Once again, channel that I own, operate, work with, along with Marcus Grant and many others. We're giving away an autographed DJ Moore jersey. All you got to do is just get the top 5 draft picks as accurate as you possibly can. Whoever's the most accurate gets the jersey. Plain and simple.
And it's okay if you look at mine, because I've given you a draft. I've given you a blueprint on what should be successful. The only thing I would tell you, we
both got them up there. Yeah, we both got some shit up there.
The only thing I'll tell you, right, and this is one that I'll tell everybody out there listening for some free draft analysis here. I had Evan Neal, number 3, to the Texans. I do believe that he's going to slide a little bit. We saw some smoke. We saw some smoke coming out over the last 24 hours that there are teams concerned with the medical side of things from him. So, and we've seen that in the past where these things come out.
And that's why I think it's New York. That's why I think
he
it's
could
New York
slide a little bit. So I think that I had Ikwem Ikwinanu going to the Giants at 5. I think he ends up going number 3 to the Texans, and I think you see
he's getting sticky in Atlanta where the players play.
He ain't gonna make it all the way to 8. I ain't gonna lie. He ain't gonna be around for them to draft that. The Falcons are gonna have to move up.
We'll see. But yeah, make sure you guys download the Stacks app, stacksapp.io. Google it. Enjoy the draft coverage, both on Good Old Boys, on Rum Boys. Play the Elias Game Plan Challenge. 31032. Text the word Stacks, or click the link in the description section.
Right. Hop on the Stacks app. Enter our draft day accuracy challenge there, where we've got that prize sponsored by 32-bit, the DJ Moore autographed jersey, as well as that people are going to be on the app talking draft left, right, center. Another way to hop on and interact there as well. So make sure that you download the app. But anyway, he's Rum Boys Robbie. I'm Derek from the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. You've been watching the Stacks on Stacks Windup. Have a good one. Be safe.